Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to be here with you this morning celebrating. Hey, let's stand together. I just want to take a moment to welcome you online if you're watching as well. It's just great to be here this morning, and I know that at times watching online can just be difficult. We want you to know that you're a part of this, that we're in this together. So let's celebrate together. We're going to sing a song called Graves into Gardens. It's a new song to us. I just want to read really quick these words. It says, you turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. And our God's a God who transforms. Is he not? And we celebrate every Sunday morning because that's who we celebrate. We celebrate who God is and what he's doing. So will you sing with me? It goes like this. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Let's do that one more time. Oh, there's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You got it? Let's sing this out together. I searched the word. And I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along. Then you came along and put me back together. And every desire is now satisfied here in your love. We sing, there's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. We sing, there's nothing, nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Sing, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain, come on, he's the God of the valley. There's not a place, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. There's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Sing, there's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better. seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, sing it out. Better than you, Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, we sing nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. We sing it to my grave. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. One more time. You're the only one who can. Movement, thanks for being here. Thanks for celebrating with us. We're gonna have some fun. You can have a seat.
Well, good morning. I love that song every single time. My name is Muriel, and I'm here with Kate, and we're just so glad that you're here with us, and we're so glad if you're joining us online as well. And we're going to be your hosts for today, and that just means that we're kind of guiding you through this time together. And if you are watching online, we hope that you'll share this live stream. That way you can share this message with your friends and your coworkers and your neighbors and friends. So.
Yeah, again, my name's Kate, and I'm so glad to be with you today, whether in person or online. I just want to extend a big welcome to you, and especially if you're a first-time guest. We're so glad you're here with us, and I just want to let you know that Movement exists to help people find and follow God. That's what we do through the weekend, and also throughout the week. There's lots of different opportunities to get involved, take a next step, and just really live out what God is calling us to do with our lives. So I'm just excited for you guys to be here today. I'm so I don't know, the sun's shining. We just had a rockin' song. Like, I feel like it's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to let you know, no matter where you're at on your spiritual journey, whether this is your first time stepping foot into a church or maybe even just clicking on the live stream and watching along with us, you're welcome here. There's a place for you. And if this is your, 572nd time, I think I used a bigger number the first service.
Like 800 something.
Yeah,
it's
something
okay.
like that. I said that because I teach first graders, and that number is a very hard concept for them. So, but feels like it sometimes. So, anyways, that flopped. Cool. So, yeah, we're glad you're here with us. That's really all I meant by that. So,
Great.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, and like Kate said, our mission here is helping people find and follow God, and we want to invite you into that mission, like from the get-go. Like Kate said, if you're your first time or you've been here for a while, and one way, especially if you're new, to kind of connect with us is by filling out a Connect card. And when you do that, if you are new, we are going to donate $5 on your behalf to one of our partner organizations, and all of which really do a great job in caring for kids. And you get to choose which organization you want that $5 to go towards. So if you're new, fill out that Connect card. We'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, please take advantage of that. It's just another way that we are able to express our generosity to our partners. It's really easy to do. You can pull your phone out and open your camera app on your phone, just scan the QR code in the seat back in front of you. Or if you want to use paper, you can totally grab one of the paper Connect cards in front of you, fill it out. There's a drop box in here in the auditorium or out in the lobby. You can put it in. It doesn't matter if you're new, which one you fill out. You will still get an email following up with you to pick an organization that we can make, a donation in your honor for just filling out the card. I'm partial to Children's Mentoring Connection. That tugs at my heartstrings. It's a great organization in Findlay, but honestly, you can't really go wrong when you're giving money to help kids.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah. So we are in the middle of a series called Unexpected. It's going to take us from now until Easter. And it's been great. And if you've missed a week or two, feel free to go back online and catch up. I know for me, even though I'm here in person, I'm still going back and catching up because there's so many things that just kind of strike me throughout the week. So it's awesome. I can't, speak about it enough. I've really enjoyed it. So we are going to move on now with our message.
How we doing? Hey, it is, as Kate and Muriel said, it is great to be here and just to be a part of celebrating with you. And if I haven't had a chance to meet you, my name is Eric, and I'm one of the people on staff here. Would love just to be able to connect with you. I'll be hanging out over in the Next Steps area as well, so would love just to get the opportunity to meet you and get to hear a little bit about your story. So make sure you do that. But as Kate and Muriel said, we are continuing the series called Unexpected, and let me just give you a little bit of the vision behind it. We're walking through the book of Luke together. Luke is one of the first 4 books in the New Testament, and it is what we call one of the Gospels. The Gospels are really just narratives or accounts of the life of Jesus. They walk through the life, and they walk through his life and his teaching, and one of the things that we see over and over and over again throughout the book of Luke is that Jesus was often to people very unexpected. And if you are new here, you can, as Kate said, you can go on and follow up, but don't worry. Like, you picked a great time to join in as we continue to walk through Jesus' life through Easter. But when I talk about unexpected, here's what we see happen throughout the book of Luke. We see that Jesus had unexpected friends. People that they would have never guessed Jesus would hang out with. He hung out with. Jesus had unexpected values. Many of the things that people thought he would be about ended up not being as significant, and other things that people didn't think were significant became very significant. Jesus had, he was very unexpected in his teaching. He challenged people. Last week, we talked at perhaps the biggest challenge that Jesus ever gave in his teaching, and that is, he said, I want you to love your enemies. I want you to love those who hate you, who hurt you, who are against you. And that was a very unexpected teaching. And we also see that Jesus had unexpected priorities, that there were things that were very important to Jesus, that were priorities in his life that he wanted us to make priority that just seemed to be unexpected. And that's really we're going to walk today is through that idea of priority. And we're going to walk through a story that's one of my all-time favorites in the scriptures. And so we'll get there in a minute. It's in Luke 10. But before we get there, let me just share a story from my life that will really set the stage for where I want to go today. Some of you know this, but my wife and I, we moved back to Ohio. We're originally from Ohio, from Findlay area, but we moved back after spending a few years in Wisconsin and the city of Milwaukee. And we sold our house in the spring in order to prepare to move back here. I'm trying to do the math in my head now backwards, and a while ago, we'll just say that. We moved back, but in the spring we sold our house, but we weren't moving until the fall, and so some good friends of ours invited our family of 4, us and my wife and I and our 2 girls, to stay with them for the summer. Now, I would just tell you, it was really, I don't know who does that, but it was really cool. And my friend Nick and I, we'd go out and we'd play basketball like every night. We'd go out and we'd relive the glory days of high school. And then our wives would come to the door because they were hanging around with all the children, and they'd yell at us, and we'd have to go in. It was like, getting yelled at by your parents all over again. But it was a lot of fun. But the thing I remember most, one of my favorite stories, they were having a neighborhood barbecue at their house, and they lived on the end of a cul-de-sac down, and their house was a single story that had a walkout basement, and everyone was hanging out behind their house for this party. And my friend Nick, he just said, hey, here's what I want you to do. I just want you to mingle with people. I want you to help me be a good host and just make people feel very welcome. And I said, well, I can do that. That's not a problem. So we were hanging out with people out back, and in the process, we were also, he was also making food, and and he had lit the grill. It was up on the first floor, on the first level out front. He had put it in his driveway, and he had made a huge pork loin that he had wrapped in 4 or 5 pounds of bacon, all right? So this thing was just loaded with bacon and some other things as well, and he was so excited about it. And I said, hey, I love to cook. I was like, can I help you out? Can I cook this for you so you can just hang out? I was like, no. I want you to go back and just hang out with people as well. And so he said, just go back and enjoy yourself and connect with people. And so I do. And as I'm connecting with people, I see that Nick is also enjoying himself and connecting with people. And it hits me like, hey, you know what? I think he's probably throwing that on the grill. I ought to go check, make sure it's okay. So I walk upstairs and out front. And as I walk out of the garage to look at the grill is like bright orange. I mean, the entire grill is bright orange, and there are flames shooting out of the top, and actually the whole bottom that holds the propane tank, there are flames shooting out the sides of that. This thing is completely on fire. I mean, it is glowing hot. I have no idea, like, how am I even gonna get this out? Finally, I find a fire extinguisher, and like, I have to go to town on this thing because it is just out of control. And in the moment, realized that in the midst of just going down and hanging out with people, we were completely distracted and no one was paying attention to the grill. Now, we did not get to eat this pork loin. It was long gone, and that's still, I grieve that to this day a little bit. But here's what I know to be true in my life. I think it's true in yours. Have you ever been distracted? Let me ask, have you ever been distracted by something? Yeah, of course you have, right? Of course you've been distracted by some of you are so distracted right now. Let me ask you again, because you weren't paying attention the first time. So let me just, I'll just say again, have you ever been distracted by anything? Yeah, right? Absolutely you have. For those of you that know me, I'm sometimes described as easily distracted, and the struggle is real, all right? I'll just go there. But I think we've all had those moments in our lives where we've been distracted, where we've missed something because of being distracted. And you're not the only one. I'm not the only one. In fact, we see time and time again that throughout the Bible that people are often distracted from really what's important. But the story we're going to look at today is the one that stands out to me the most. And so we're going to look at the story, just like Nick was hosting a barbecue and invited me into it. We're going to look at a story of a party that was taking place by a lady by the name of Martha and her sister Mary. And Jesus is on his way through town, and they invite Jesus over. They're going to have a party for him, and that's where we're going to pick up. If you have a Bible, it's Luke 10. You can follow along on the screen as well, and if you're online, it'll be on there as well. But Luke chapter 10, and I'm just going to read the whole encounter to you. I just want to read it. I want you to put yourself in the party. I want you to put yourself there. Just imagine that you're at Martha's house, because that's where Jesus is. And here's what we read about this party. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, which they're on their way to Jerusalem, okay? So this is beginning the process of Jesus and his disciples making their journey to Jerusalem, which is where Holy Week takes place, and ultimately Jesus' ending spot on earth. And they're on their way, and he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he had said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And so she came to Jesus and she asked him, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Jesus replied, Martha, Martha, you're worried and you're upset about many things. But few things are needed, or indeed, only one. See, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Okay, so there's the scene, you know, there's the party that's taking place, and like I said, I just really want to walk through this story together, because I think there's so much for us to learn about who Jesus is, but even more what he has for us. And the first thing is we're talking about unexpected and what makes this story unexpected. I don't want to miss something that isn't just, doesn't necessarily just stand off the page, but would have certainly been a very unexpected thing in this story. And the reality is, in that time, what would have been really, really very unexpected is that we find Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus, okay? Now, in that culture, it was a culture that men and women were not always seen as equals, and they didn't associate in the same rooms, in the same places, and even within within houses in that culture, you had like the public space where the men would meet, and you had the private space where the women would gather, and there was just this cultural expectation that those lines wouldn't be crossed. And as we get into this story, and Martha is distracted by what's going on, part of the reason I have to assume that she's distracted is because Mary is moved outside of this invisible line that seems to be there. She stepped out of that, and she's sitting at the feet of Jesus. And sitting at the feet of Jesus doesn't maybe mean what you think it means. In fact, sitting at the feet of Jesus wasn't like, well, Jesus is up here and, you're down there and it's not. No. What this is describing is what a religious teacher, a rabbi would have followers who would sit and learn everything about their rabbi, right? They would sit at their teacher's feet in order to learn and to understand. They were fully engaged, fully immersed. These students had given their full attention to their teacher, and part of the reason why they did that is because eventually, one day, they wouldn't be the student, but rather they would be in a place where people would sit at their feet and they would learn and understand from them. And so this was culturally something that would have never been expected. Like, this would have been a big no. I mean, really, the fact that Mary is in this room would have been borderline scandalous to the people that were there, and yet there she is sitting at Jesus' feet. And one of the things I don't want us to miss about who Jesus is that Jesus was constantly breaking down cultural barriers, right? He was constantly breaking down barriers between people and him. We talked about it in week 1. We talked about this idea that Jesus made space available at the table, that Jesus ate with tax collectors and sinners, these people that would have been viewed as unacceptable, unworthy, and Jesus was constantly breaking down those barriers. Maybe one of the things that's kept you from really ever taking steps with God, or even coming to this place where I believe in him and I want to follow him, is because perhaps culturally your understanding is that being a Christian or following Jesus still keeps with it like different classes of people, and maybe you've looked at, maybe you've heard that the Bible is against certain categories of people, certain genders of people, whatever that would be. And yet what I want us to see is Jesus was constantly breaking down cultural barriers, so much so that I want to ask you a question, like, who is it that you just can't imagine sitting at the feet of Jesus? Who is it for you? Who is it that, if you were really honest, there's just this person, this group of people that you just can't imagine that Jesus would invite into his circle to say, hey, I want you to come and I want you to have my attention, and I'm going to give you, and you're going to give me your attention, and we're going to learn, and I'm going to empower you, and I'm going to help you understand and grow. And who is it for you? Because I think for many of us, that can be a challenging thing. We have we carry with us certain expectations, certain prejudices, certain understandings of who Jesus would invite into his community, but that's just not what we see. And so here we have Mary, who is broken through these cultural barriers that seem to exist, and she's sitting at Jesus' feet, and all of this is good, right? I mean, she has her full attention is devoted to Jesus. All the while, Martha, her sister, isn't so happy, right? I mean, how does Martha respond? What do we see? It says this, right? It says Martha was distracted. She was distracted by the big dinner that she was preparing. And so Mary's full attention is devoted to Jesus, but Martha's full attention is devoted somewhere else. Martha's distracted, right? She's distant. Perhaps you've been there before. I mean, that's where we started, right? Have you ever been distracted before? Yeah. Have you ever been in a place where you're so immersed in something, so it's just consuming you to the point where you can't see anything around you? All you see is what's in front of you. You've been there. So consumed that you're unaware of anything else going on. I mean, and that's Martha's story, right? Martha is so concerned that her pork loin is going to catch on fire on the grill, although they're Jewish, so it probably wasn't a pork loin, but so you know what, like, whatever is like that, she's so consumed about what's going on and or prepare for Jesus being there that she's distracted by that she's not seeing what's going on. She's not seeing it. Like she's busting it, trying to make this the best party that it could be. And I'm going to read what happens next. But before I do, I want you, if you're a parent in here and you have teenagers or even elementary kids and you have more than one child, I want you to step into your parent role for a minute. Because Martha's response is so fascinating as she comes to Jesus and she makes a request. And here's what she says to Jesus. She says, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister, she just sits here while I do all the work? Like, tell her to come and help me. Okay, right? We've been there. Like, Mom, Dad, why am I cleaning the kitchen and Lucy, she's just hanging out on her iPad and she should be working and just tell her to come and help me out. Like, why am I doing all this? And Martha has come to Jesus and she said, look, I'm busy doing all this stuff for this party, this great event that we're throwing for you, and Mary isn't helping at all. Jesus, tell her to help out. Tell her. You see, Martha's, in a way, she's trying to control this scene. She's trying to sit in the seat of control and says, Jesus, what she's assuming in this story, I think this is really important for us to understand, is what she's assuming is that Jesus is in full agreement with what she's asking, right? Like it's the logical, right? It would be the logical thing to assume that Jesus sees Martha busting it and he sees Mary just sitting around, right? She's just sitting around. And the logical thing would be, Jesus, tell her to come help me out. Tell her to get in here. Tell her to stop being lazy. Now, let me just ask you, What are some assumptions that you make when it comes to what concerns Jesus? Maybe I'll ask you this way. What are some assumptions you make of what's important or what really matters the most to God? What are some assumptions that we make, right? Because most of us have assumptions that can become easy for us to assume that we know, right? That we know what's most important to God. And what's most important to God? We think it's whatever's most important to us, right? Like in that moment, we think whatever I'm into has to be what God's most into, and whatever's a big deal to me, well, certainly it must be what's most important to God, because we kind of put ourselves in that role, and then the process, we begin to make assumptions on what matters most to God. Now, it can be easy for us to assume that other people just aren't getting it, that they just don't understand. It can be easy for us to look at other people and what they're doing or what they're not doing and go, man, if they only knew, they would, do X, Y, or Z, or they certainly would see things differently. They would certainly see things my way, because my way has to be, what's most important to God. And we can easily get distracted, right? We can easily get distracted and completely miss what's most important to God. And Martha's on the verge of this, and so here's how Jesus responds. I love this. He says, Martha, Martha. God answers. Jesus answered, you are worried and you're upset about many things. Now, whenever we see in the scriptures, whenever we see someone's name repeated, it's usually like this heartfelt, like connect to the heart of who that person is. I mean, it's a significant piece, right? Like it's attention grabbing. I mean, it's not, Brady Bunch, Marsha material, all right? Like that joke will bomb for anyone under the age of about 35. So, Kate, you're now not alone, all right? So, yeah. But anyways, it's not that. I mean, what Jesus is really doing here is he's doing this. He's saying, he's stressing, he's showing compassion, he's showing love. He's going, Martha, hey, come here. I really want you to hear this. Martha, I want you to understand this. Martha, you're worried, you're anxious, you're letting this control you, you're stressed out. Martha, no, hey, Martha, just before you lose it, before you end up upset and divided, before you find yourself in this place where you're just falling apart, hey, come here. Let me walk you through this. And he says this, right? He says, you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. In fact, He says, in fact, only one. Only one. And Mary has chosen what is better. She's chosen what's better. And it will not be taken away from her. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. He says, Mary's chosen what's better. And what's fascinating about this, right? Like, he didn't say, Martha, you're completely wrong. He said, yeah, getting ready for this party, being a good host, yeah, that's great. Like, it's not bad, right? It's not like you were doing something bad. It's just, like, you're involved in all this stuff, and I don't want you to miss, like, this is what's better. Like, when you host a party, okay, if you've ever hosted a party, there are really two things that you do as a host. There are two reasons you host a party. The first is you serve people, right? Can I take your coat? Can I show you around? Hey, let me make you feel at home. Can I get you something to drink? Hey, let's have a good time. I'm here to serve you. I mean, that is part of being a good host, but that's not the most important part of being a good host, right? I mean, you don't have people over your house just so that you can, operate a restaurant or wait on people. You have people over your house. You host people because you want a relationship with those people. Like, if people leave and you haven't had a chance to connect and be in community and have relationships and laugh and have joy and share just share time together, if you miss that, then you haven't really done your job as a host, right? I mean, because that's what hosting is all about. And Jesus is saying to Martha, it's not what you're doing is bad or wrong. Look, I understand you want this to be a good party. You want people, myself and the disciples have a great time, but I don't want you to miss this, Martha. Like, my presence is your priority. I want you to make my presence your priority. I want you to make it your priority. Martha, you're distracted. You're distracted. You see, we can be so busy doing stuff that we miss what's most important. Not that other things aren't important, but what happens, right? What so often happens is we allow the urgent, right? The urgent to keep us from the important. We all have a tendency to do this. I mean, it's not just, it's true in all different areas of our lives. I mean, how many of us, maybe you've had certain financial goals and you wanted to save money and you wanted to put yourself in a position where you can give more generously and that you can be financially free, but then the urgent comes, right? And there's certain things that pop up and the bills come and this, unexpected thing happens, and before long, you're operating in this place where the urgent is just overtaken what's most important. Maybe you have made plans as a family, like, hey, we're going to have these values and we're going to grow together as a family and we're going to spend this time with our kids and we're going to develop them and we're going to, serve together and we're going to live our best life as a family. And then the urgent comes and work calls and, all these other options and opportunities and things start to fill our schedule. And all of a sudden, even though this is very, very important to us, the urgent just seems to take over and all these other things become important to us. I love how John Maxwell says this. There's some humor, and he says this. He says, you cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. He says you can't overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. And for many of us, if we step back, I think the reality is we've made a lot of things that aren't really all that important. Not that they're bad, they're just not all that important. We put them in this seat of significance, this place of importance. And Jesus says, look, Martha, I just want you to understand, like, not that that's bad. There are many things that you could be a part of, but Mary's chosen what's most important. And I want to just suggest a question. One of the things I love about Jesus' teachings, one of the things I love about walking through this Unexpected series is if we're willing, like, we got to search our hearts. This isn't easy stuff. I mean, last week when we talked about loving your enemies, and I said, man, that you're going to have to fight. There's a tension here, right? I mean, Jesus says this, but it's not easy, and it doesn't mean you don't have to navigate through it. And I would say this is the same kind of conversation. This isn't an easy answer. This isn't just, okay, I've arrived and I'm there, but I think it's something we need to walk through. And here's a question I want you to ask. Like, what is it that you need to step away from in order to give Jesus your full attention? Let's personalize it. Like, what is something I need to step away from in order to give Jesus my full attention. Because this is what Mary did, right? Mary seized the moment. Mary sees the moment. She sees Jesus as this person who's performed miracles, who's healed people, who's taught like no one has taught, who everyone who seems to come in contact with Jesus, their life is changed. And all of a sudden, right, now Jesus is showing up at their house. Think about that. Jesus is showing up. He's going to hang out at their house. It's important. And Mary says, look, I'm going to seize this moment, not to be busy doing a bunch of stuff, but to sit at the feet of Jesus and be in his presence. That's what Mary did. Because here's what she understood, right? Mary understood that when people came into contact with Jesus, they were changed. People were constantly changed by being in Jesus' presence. I mean, she had heard the stories. She had heard the stories of the blind man who can see, of the lady who had been bleeding for years, that had been healed, of people that just touched Jesus and like the power came through them. And she's going, man, now Jesus is right here and I'm not going to miss the moment. I'm not going to miss the opportunity. And yeah, we can have a good meal and we can throw a good party, but we can throw a great party and still miss what's most important. Church, you're online, in person, wherever you're at. Look, I don't want us to miss the moment. I don't want us to miss the moment. And the moment is this. I don't want us to miss the opportunity to experience some peace in our lives. I don't want us to miss the opportunity to miss the power that comes along with being in the presence of Jesus. I don't want us to miss the moment. And we can be so caught up in things that we can miss what's most important. Here's the thing. That Jesus, like, I think it'd be easy to step back and go, yeah, well, if Jesus showed up at my house, I'm gonna put down the apron in the mixing bowl and I'm going to go out and hang out with them. But, it's different. Like now, today, that's not where we find ourselves. But here's what Jesus promises, right? Like Jesus promises that he will be with his followers. He promises that his presence wouldn't leave them, that his presence is available. And here's what I've seen happen. Not from afar. I've seen happen in my life. I've seen happen to people around. When we get rid of distractions and we sit in Jesus' presence, when we make ourselves available, when we give God our full attention, he moves in our lives and he changes us. He transforms us. He makes us different. But when we're consumed with everything else going on around us, Jesus feels distant, unavailable, and unwilling to meet us where we are. But it's not that he's not available. It's not that he doesn't want to work in our lives. And I think for many of us, what Jesus is calling us to is that he wants our attention. He wants us to step out of the kitchen, and he wants us to sit at his feet, and he wants us to be in his presence because he says, my presence is what's most important. I love how King David out of the Old Testament, he talks about the power of God's presence in his life, and I want to read out of a translation called the Passion Translation, but this is what David says is most important. Check this out. He says, here's the one thing, the one thing, the most important thing, the one thing I crave from God, the one thing I seek above everything else. I want the privilege of living with him every moment in his house, finding the sweet loveliness of his face, filled with awe, delighting in his glory and his grace. I want to live my life. It says, I want to live my life so close to him that he takes pleasure in my every prayer. I want to live my life so close to him. So here's the question. Here's the question I want to leave you with. How can Jesus have your full attention? How can he have your full attention? In the midst of all this other stuff going on around us, in the midst of our work life and our family life and our activity life, a life of serving other people, a life of doing good things, and yet we can do all of this and we can miss the moment. We can miss what's most important. And when we do, there's always this piece of us just feels unsatisfied, that feels empty. honestly, I think for some of us, we live with this amount of anxiety because we work and we work and we work and we try to do enough and we try to make sure everything's together and we work at it and we work at it and we work at it. And in the process, we're like, hey, I wish some other people would come and help me. I wish, I wasn't alone in this. And all along, Jesus is saying, would you just be in my presence? I want to just share a little bit of my journey. And my guess is it's not completely different from some of yours as well. This time, beginning of March last year, right? We were, as a staff, we were so excited. We had purchased a building, and we're thinking, man, it's only going to be a few months now. We're going to start construction in March, allegedly, and that's going to be great. And we had that going for us. We were planning Easter services. We had ordered invite cards. We were thinking about all the good stuff that God's going to do, and then COVID came along, and everything changed like in an instant. As everything changed, here's what happened for me and my role and with our team is we started getting to work. There was work to be done. And, it started with how do we go from having live gatherings to being completely online. Like, we got to set up a studio. We've got to buy equipment. We need to rethink. We need to change. We need to address this stuff. We need to have, we need to be online and connecting with people every night of the week. We need to, set up phone trees and care structures. And all of a sudden, all these things just started piling on top of each other. And it was busy and it was full. And not that it wasn't rewarding or not that it wasn't engaging. It was just so much stuff. It was so much. It was so much. And I'll be very truthful for you. This gathering, you will hear me say all the time. You'll hear me say church is not about a weekend gathering. Church is, we say it every week, go and be the church. Church is not about just this gathering. But I will tell you, as a pastor, this gathering kind of gives me a little bit of a picture that, oh man, all this work, God, all these things that we're doing, things are happening. You see people's faces and you have conversations and people talk and there's excitement and people are happy to be there. And to be honest, in that season, it was so difficult because it felt like you worked and you worked and you just kept working and you literally couldn't see any fruit from it. You were just working. And it was tiring and it was like, man, God. And I remember calling a good friend of mine in Lexington, another pastor, and we were just talking through this. And he said, well, you're not alone. All of us are trying to, all of us are trying to figure out the same thing. And he said, so much of this we can't control. So much of this we can work and work and work and just feels empty. He said, the one thing, it was a Mary and Martha conversation. He said, the one thing that you can do, the one thing, is just sit at the feet of Jesus. He said, you can just make sitting at the feet of Jesus, make his presence a priority. And Eric, I know that seems, he said, I know it seems selfish. I know it seems like there's all this work to be done. He said, but it starts here. It's the one thing above everything else. If anything else is going to be effective, if God's going to move, if things are going to change, if things are going to happen, then it has to start by sitting at the feet of Jesus. And I'll tell you, that conversation was like a game changer for me. Because honestly, we can put so much stock on what we think's important, right? So much stock on what it means to be a good follower, what it means to be a good leader, to be a good pastor. We can put so much stock on what it means to be a good mom, a good dad, a good coworker, a good neighbor, whatever that may be. And the reality is, if we're so focused on that, we miss what is most important, which is, Jesus, you have my full attention. I just want to sit at your feet. So how can Jesus have your full attention? Because Jesus says, look, above all else, the most unexpected thing you may hear, but above all else, I want you to make my presence the priority. Let's pray. God, today I just pray for some specific people that are in this room. God, I pray, just thinking through this, God, I pray for those of us that are just tired from working and we're frustrated because people aren't maybe pulling their weight. It's easy to look around at what you're doing and get just begin to be resentful or upset. God, would you just help them? Would you help this group of people to understand that your presence is the thing that matters most? God, I pray for us that those people in this room that maybe just don't feel like they're worthy to sit at your feet. God, for those people that feel like there may not be a place for them, God, would you help us to see today that they're invited, that I'm invited, that we're invited to be in your presence. God, I'm praying today for those of us that maybe feel like we've got it figured out, and yet we've got a lot of growing to do. God, would you help us to just have new perspective on what it means to be a follower and to be in your presence and to be surrendered. God, would we be people that live every moment in your presence, God, because you say that's what's most important. God, that's my prayer. God, I pray we leave here and we take a step towards you having our attention. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Caught up in your presence, I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't know me anything, and more than anything that you can do, I just want you. And I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sang another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Well, take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. Let's stand and sing together. Come on. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't know me anything, and more than anything that you can do, I just want you. And I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, and more than anything that you can do, I just want you. I just want you. Just really feel like God's saying in this moment right now that there's someone who feels like they can't sit at his feet. They've got too much shame. They've got too much brokenness to sit at your feet, Jesus. I just feel like the Lord is saying in this moment that he loves you, that you're enough. That's why he's here this morning. That's why he's here in your life. He's calling you out of that place. Sit at his feet. And that one more time. I'm caught up in your presence. I just want to sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. I'm not here for blessings. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, and more than anything that you can do, I just want you. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. Sing this out, come on, speak to me. Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me. And come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. I believe, but help me. And I believe, but help my unbelief. You understand me. You understand me. And help me reach the faith that's underneath. You understand me. You understand me. One more time, you understand. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you.
reflect back on what we just heard and what we just sang, man, it's a lot.
Yeah, it kind of wrecked me.
I know, right? I felt like the first service I was doing good, and now the second service that it's kind of washed over again. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, God,
Yep.
hear
Right.
ya.
Exactly.
I think for me, really just, thinking about Mary and Martha, like initially I'm like, I'm totally Martha. I am work.
Yeah.
And I look at people like Mary and I'm like, must be nice. But honestly, I think there's a time and a place for service and for worship and learning what that balance looks like.
Yeah.
Because service isn't bad. It's just being able to balance it with the worship and taking the distractions out and knowing when the time to worship is, and to just really sit at the presence of Jesus's feet like Mary did, because she was ultimately worshiping, just letting his words and his just presence wash over her. And I think for me, like, I want to do that. I say I want to do that, but do I do that? So that's for me, like, my challenge this week. I don't know what that looks like for you. I would love to chat with you about it at the Next Steps area after service. Muriel and I will be there. Ellen will be there. We would love to pray with you, to talk about it. Maybe you don't know what your next step is. We're here for you to help figure that out. If you're online, go ahead on the connection card. Even if you already filled one out, go ahead and fill another one out. And just say, I want to talk to somebody. I want to connect with somebody. I want to just figure out what my next step is. What is God asking me to do?
Right.
And what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest piece there.
Yeah, and really, like, the beauty of walking with other people is that you have people to encourage you and to challenge you and to help you grow, and we want to be able to do that with you. And I was telling Kate before that sometimes that next step or that nudge that you feel like God is trying to tell you is not an easy step. It might be really, really difficult for you too. And even for me, like, sometimes I feel like I'm dragging my feet, like, I don't want to do this. There's this reason and this reason and this reason. But I have to stop and say, like, but God, if you say so, like, I know that there's something better. And so I think, like, walking with people through that is super helpful on that journey too. And so, yeah, like Kate said, we'd love to be able to do that for you and be able to talk with you and walk with you through that. Yeah. And just as Kate was saying, just with worship too, we were able to worship God with song today, and you just see the power in that. And another way that we get to worship God is through generosity and being able to give. And so we want to give you the opportunity to be able to respond to God in that way too. And so if you are here in person, you can use that same QR code on your seat backs. That'll take you to online giving, or there's the giving envelope. You can drop that off in the drop box on your way out of the auditorium or in the lobby. If you're watching online, we want you to join in that mission too and join in generosity as well. And so you can go to movementfinley.com/give and be a part of that as well.
Right. Along with generosity, I just want to say, through your generosity, we've been able to come alongside and partner with Children's Mentoring Connection. Yeah. I know I've plugged them a couple times today, but they have my heart. And I know that that movement is also just such a strong partner for them. We help with mentoring and other outreach events that they do. So bowling is coming up, and that is a big one that movement has taken part in for probably the last 6 or 7 years. Bowling for kids. It's going to be this year on Saturday, April 17th. So go ahead and go to movementfinley.com, and you can sign up to join a team. And we have a lot of fun and take up a lot of lanes.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a great event to invite friends to, but also if you're new to movement, this is a great event just to kind of jump in and get to know some people. And it's just a lot of fun. I can't really think of any other word that would describe it other than fun. And it's just a really awesome opportunity to come alongside CMC and help with their mission and their vision for kids in Hancock County, and to be able to really just say, like, not only do we support you with generous giving, but we also support you because we show up. And I think that's really important about the people at Movement is time and time again, we just show up. We're there. Yeah. So
especially in this season too.
Yeah, especially in this season of COVID, because CMC has had to totally revamp how they are connecting with kids in the Hancock County, and they've just done a phenomenal job, and it's not easy. But they're chugging along. So with our support, I know I sit on the board for CMC. So also if you want to be a mentor, please hit me up. I would love to get you connected. But truly, mentoring matters, and it's really important. So I'm just so glad that we can help support them. And again, bowling's a great time and a great way to get involved. So go ahead. And if you can't make it, please consider sponsoring somebody who is bowling that day, or even just, any sort of sponsorship is great too.
Yeah, and if you're not good at bowling and you will embarrass yourself and your family, like myself, then they can still put up bumpers too, and you can still join in the fun. So, so all of that being said, we are just super grateful that you guys have been able to join us and celebrate with us. If you are new, we've got a really cool gift out in the next steps area that we would love to be able to give you as well. So stop back there. Like we said, Kate and I will be back there. Ellen will be back there, and we would love to just connect with you and give you a gift. And so until next week, when we continue with our new series, Movement, Go and Be the Church.